This is Danny Flexent here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined for the latest edition of DiBella's Digest by the man himself, Lou DiBella. Lou, how are you?
Danny, I'm breathing. I'm walking. My family's healthy. I'm not going to complain. It's endlessly stressful and in the boxing business, particularly when we're still dealing with everything we're dealing with. But we got a good fight next weekend. Let's talk about that.
100%. Anthony Joshua defending the world heavyweight titles, unified against Oleksandr Usyk, unbeaten, former undisputed cruiserweight champion. A fight that's maybe not getting as much attention, maybe this week it is, but hasn't been, that it deserves. What sort of impact, if any, has it made in the US?
Not much, honestly. I mean, it's two guys that aren't, American. I think it's resonating as it should with the knowledgeable hardcore boxing fans. Look, you can make a very good argument that Usyk is the best fighter that Joshua has faced.
Mm.
And apologies a little bit to Klitschko, but Klitschko wasn't prime Klitschko when he faced Joshua. So, I mean, you have a great fighter in Usyk in the very prime of his career, right there in the prime of his career. One of the most skilled cruiserweights in the history of boxing, and someone you have to take seriously because of that as a heavyweight. And has he looked sensational at heavyweight? He's not a true he's a small heavyweight, but he's still incredibly difficult to fight. He's phenomenally gifted in terms of fundamentals and understanding how to move around the ring and what to do in that ring. He presents a real challenge to Anthony Joshua. And now the problem from Usyk's standpoint is Usyk's proven that he can get in there and compete and beat heavyweights, but he's never been in there with one as good as Anthony Joshua. And when we're talking about Anthony Joshua, we're talking about one of the two best heavyweights on the planet at the moment, and a big, strong, physical specimen. I favor Joshua to impose his size and advantages in power and defeat Usyk. But this is not the kind of fight that should be shocking to anybody if Usyk gives Joshua a real go. I think it's an incredibly intriguing fight. I'm not always a big fan of fighters moving out of their weight class of distinction to challenge at a higher weight. But Usyk had nothing more to prove at cruiserweight. So, and with a skill set that he has, which is really extraordinary skill set, this is a natural progression to move to heavyweight and eventually to fight one of the best out there. So, Joshua defending against Usyk is a completely admirable defense. It's a sensational fight on paper in terms of risk assessment. Usyk brings risk. Usyk has a very decent chance, if he can avoid getting hurt or getting caught, he's capable of outboxing Joshua. Now, making sure you don't get hurt, you don't get hit by a much bigger, stronger man is often easier said than done. But this is a fight, like, I got to be honest, Danny, I don't even watch a lot of the boxing product that's out there lately. And not because all of it's terrible. I mean, there's some decent fights that have been made and that are out there, but there's also a lot of non-competitive stuff. And there's also a lot of stuff that I just don't intuitively care about. Not that the fights aren't matched decently, but just nobody I find particularly compelling. So I'm not watching everything that's out there, but Joshua Usyk's one that I wouldn't miss as a fan.
Yeah, it's an excellent fight. Do you believe that size and the things that come with it, physical strength, power, do you think that will be the defining factor in this fight?
Yes. Yeah, because if I didn't think that would be the defining factor, I might very well pick Usyk. But I just don't. I saw Usyk again in his other fights at heavyweight. I don't think he's a true heavyweight in terms of strength or power. I think it caused him to be more competitive against guys that he was superior to simply on the basis of their size. We saw that in his last fight, I think.
Agree.
And I just think Joshua's athleticism, size, and physical strength are going to be the difference in the fight. And that's why I think Joshua by a late stoppage would sort of be my prediction. If the fight goes the distance and Usyk never gets hurt, all bets are off.
Is your concern more that he can't hold Joshua off or that he can't hurt Joshua? I suppose they go hand in hand.
I think they go hand in hand a little bit. I'm more concerned that he can't hold Joshua off, that he doesn't have enough to stop Joshua in his tracks. When you're as good as Usyk is fundamentally, and he's still a very strong guy, just not a big heavyweight, I don't doubt that he's capable of hurting Joshua in the right circumstance. Joshua is just a much bigger, stronger guy. And I just see Usyk having some difficulty in neutralizing the strength and power of Joshua, which is why I give Joshua the advantage. And look, I think Usyk's likely to beat almost every ordinary or the majority of ranked heavyweights. Usyk probably could find a way to handle the majority of them, but Joshua's not the majority of heavyweights.
No.
Joshua's very close to the top of the mountain. And I think when you're dealing with that skill level from a big heavyweight, that the size and the strength, and he's an extremely athletic big guy, Joshua too. So I think that combination of factors makes it hard for me to see Usyk winning this fight. But does Usyk have the boxing ability to win a decision if he doesn't get hurt? If he doesn't get hurt, he has the ability to win a decision against anybody. So I'm not discounting his chances, but I think justifiably he's a clear underdog.
And outside of Tyson Fury, is Usyk the toughest challenge out there for Joshua? Or is it Wilder? Or is it someone else?
I've always thought that because of the punching power and some of the look, Deontay's punches come from wild places.
Unpredictable.
And they're unpredictable. And I've always thought that Deontay was a hard matchup for Joshua. Much more difficult matchup for Joshua than for Fury. So I don't discount Deontay as posing a gigantic threat. There are some other big heavyweights out there that I think I think particularly as Joshua and Fury continue to age and I think there are people that may be able to pose challenges. Usyk, of what's out there right now, is certainly one of the most challenging matchups for Joshua that I can envision at the moment. Certainly up there, below Fury and Wilder, pretty close to the top of the list.
And just lastly, if it goes the way you're predicting, would you expect Usyk to then drop back down to cruiserweight, or do you feel he'd carry on campaigning at heavyweight, hoping for a shot at another champion, although the only other champion right now is, of course, Fury?
Depends on how good a fight it is. I think if the size means more, I think both of us believe, I think you favor Joshua too.
Yeah.
But I think both of us believe that Usyk poses a challenge. If that challenge is what we think it might be, in other words, a very solid heavyweight fight where Joshua imposes later in the fight his size and strength and pulls out a victory, but in a competitive fight. If it's a competitive fight, there's not a lot of strong reason for Usyk to move down to cruiserweight again. If the size turns out to be a big factor, and Joshua handles Usyk easily, maybe that makes Usyk reconsider.
Great stuff. Well, Lou, really, really appreciate the analysis as always. And we'll have to get together after the weekend and see how right or wrong we were. And
I'm one out there who often has a critical voice. Here's a fight where we're getting a fight that I think the champion's fighting a true challenge. The challenger is justifiably believes he can become heavyweight champion. I think this is the kind of title fight in the heavyweight division that we deserve. I mean, this is not just an ordinary defense of a title for Joshua. This isn't an ordinary guy he's fighting. It's a pound for pound type of guy. So let's appreciate the fight we have this coming weekend. And as boxing fans, I think this is one we should be watching and talking about.
Very much so.